I'd like to extend a warm West of Ireland welcome to our final speaker in the morning session, which is Jayne Hall, and thank Jayne. She's travelled from the UK to be with us today. She's an experienced building surveyor with a demonstrated history of working in the construction industry. Jayne worked as an architectural technician, before establishing her own architectural design and wayfinding consultancy. In 2003, she transferred her skills to building control and was promoted to building control and land charges manager at West Somerset Council. She's currently building control and planning enforcement manager at South Gloucestershire Council. The highlight of her career to date, I'm thinking in her own words as well, was her election to be the first woman president of the local authority Building Control in the UK, which is a national organisation for building control, a post she held until December 2016. She's now the Vice President of the Chartered Association of Building Engineers and will take over the presidency in May 2020, so we wish her very well with that and every success. As a woman in construction, she's keen to promote and encourage girls to consider construction and engineering as a worthwhile and rewarding career. It's an interesting one. I was once told off for using the term girls in GMIT, but so today Jayne's going to discuss well-being and mental health in the construction sector, which is an industry that's grown in great prominence in the Irish construction sector in recent years. See John Sweeney there, we've discussed the Colin, Justin Malloy of the CIF, and Joe Keogh from Cork IT. So very prominent now and a very pertinent topic. So we'll ask Jayne to give us her thoughts on that.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you to everybody. Thanks for inviting me across to your lovely country to present my views on mental health and wellbeing. As Martin told you, I'm Jayne Hall. I'm about to become the Built Environment Enforcement Manager, which makes me feel sort of quite powerful. I work for a local authority in the southwest of England. It's a unitary authority. It sits just north of the city of Bristol, so it encompasses the northern sort of city limits. We've got an aerospace industry, aeronautical industry there, but mostly it's pretty rural. Of it. You can see the 7 bridges in the background, this one over there, and in the middle, that's the Severn Estuary, or Bristol Channel, as people like to call it. And that in the foreground is the Wave. You may have heard of it, you may not have heard of it. It is a great feat of engineering. It's the UK's first inland surf lagoon and artificial wave pool. And I can tell you, there was quite a lot of local resistance to it. The agricultural community were very sceptical. We're a little bit away from the coast there, but it's been very successful and attracts a lot of people. Took vision, took innovation, strategic thinking, powerful personal leadership, high-performing teams, effective collaboration and communication, and probably a very lot of stress for the development team. Which brings me on to today's subject. I'm here to talk to you about well-being and mental health in the construction sector. It was interesting to see John's diagrams about the peaks and troughs in the industry, and it's long been said that construction is the barometer of the economy and its ups and downs, and it's a bit like real life. We all have ups and downs. Like many here today, I've had a fair share of my own. So I've got half an hour today to share my thoughts on this subject. I want to make it clear it's a personal opinion piece. I'm not going to bombard you with technical stuff. There's a few statistics in there, and I've drawn on a few studies, but I've restricted myself to 10 slides, and I've very handily put a slide counter in here so we all know where we are. But seriously, I'm going to cover what we mean by well-being, a little bit about what mental health is, what's its impact on the industry and on individuals, and what measures can we take? What can we do to identify and address the well-being in our sector? I've got a little anecdote, my story. I'll share with you. I've had some ups and downs in my career. I've seen relationships come and go. I've moved home. I've had a short spell of unemployment. I've had a spell of self-employment, 12 years in fact, during which I got married and had children and got divorced. I've had financial crises. I've seen my business go to the wall as a result of the marriage. I was married to my business partner. What a shame. I've done a few weeks of sofa surfing. But it's not all been doom and gloom. And for the most part, I plodded on, making difficult decisions. I've had staffing issues, austerity, transformation. I've had my job at risk, and I've seen peaks and troughs. But I never thought it was anything special. And that was notes. But my key message is that we just get up and we get on with it. We don't always necessarily recognise that stress is an issue. I had a serious back operation that brought me back to earth, and I was very lucky. I made 100% recovery. But I have a different outlook on life, and I recognise that health and well-being are key to a very happy and productive life. So, what is well-being? Well, well-being, the dictionary definition, is feeling healthy, good about yourself, functioning at your best. But it's broader than moment-to-moment happiness. How satisfied people are with life as a whole. It's about us having a sense of purpose, how in control you feel. What do we need to achieve well-being? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which isn't there. You might be familiar with it. It's a triangular psychological tool, which gives... I'll put the definition back so you've got something to look at. It says we have basic physiological needs: water, food, shelter, warmth, rest, safety, security. Then we have psychological needs: love, friendship, intimacy. And above that, at the top of the triangle, we have our self-esteem needs, our desire for self-fulfillment. And well-being and happiness is achieved when our needs are met. We live in a rich society. Theoretically, we have all of this. Factors like long hours, extended time working away from home, temporary and precarious nature of many construction products. There's a crisis in worker well-being that's dominated headlines in recent years, and that's for a very good reason. We have an unhealthy macho culture, and it contributes to an increase in ill health in the sector: work-related stress, depression, and anxiety. I've got a slide that works. Mental health, it's a big issue, but what is it? Yeah, another dictionary definition. Mental health, it's our condition in regard to our psychological and emotional well-being. It affects how we think and feel. Mental health problems affect 1 in 4 people in the UK, from common issues like depression, anxiety, to more rarer psychological conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. But it can feel as bad, whatever's affecting you can feel as bad or even worse than any other physical illness. You just can't see it. But it's serious. Wrong slide. Sorry. Mental illness, it can be fatal. It leads to people self-harm. People commit suicide, and it's more common than we think. It's because we don't talk about it. I have another personal anecdote. My husband is a self-employed building conservationist. He works on his own, but he works in teams of other people, and he works for a large estate which has a huge portfolio of buildings. Last year, 2 of his people he worked alongside killed themselves, and it was quite a shock to us to find it's that close. So without our mental health, we have no health. We discuss our physical ailments, just like the weather. So why don't we talk about how we feel? If you break a leg or an arm, people acknowledge, they empathise, they sympathise, they see your predicament. It's obvious. There's no assumptions made when raising the subject. But if you're broken emotionally, it's as debilitating as any physical illness. You probably have physical symptoms. You can't sleep, you lose your appetite, the pain feels very real. A relationship breakdown, a death in the family, it might hit you hard. It's natural to grieve. Your friends, your family, they might support you. They'll show empathy and sympathy initially. But what if it hits you hard? What if you struggle to cope? Maybe you self-medicate. A couple of glasses of Jameson's before breakfast. You're late to work. Your performance drops off. Sympathy soon wears off then, doesn't it? Just when you need that support the most. I'll put a show of hands. Who in the audience, who of you here have experienced something that's knocked you back emotionally, where work's been a struggle for a time? Anybody had that affect them at all? There's a few of you there. How do you feel about it? Did you take time off? Did you feel it was appropriate to take time off? No. It's tricky, isn't it? We're afraid to. We don't want to be seen as weak. So is stress a mental health problem? Stress is our body's response to danger. We all experience it, and we need it. We need a certain amount of stress for us to function. Being under pressure is normal. It's a normal part of life. Too much stress, though, can interfere. It's not a psychiatric diagnosis, but it is closely linked to mental health. Stress can lead to mental health problems or make existing ones worse. If you struggle to manage illness, then you may develop mental health problems, anxiety, depression. And equally, mental health problems can lead to stress, coping with a mental illness, managing medication, hospital appointments, treatment. It all takes its toll. So we have a vicious circle here. So what's the impact on industry? 20% of cases of ill health in the construction sector are due to work-related stress, depression and anxiety. That's according to the Health and Safety Executive figures. This leads to over 400,000 working days lost in industry each year. Skilled workers, they leave the industry permanently sometimes. New starters are discouraged. There's a toxic culture. They don't feel comfortable. They can't talk about how they're feeling. In 2016, suicide was 1.4 of all deaths worldwide, the 18th leading cause of death. In British Isles, an average of 12 men take their lives every day, and shockingly, the figure from the Office of National Statistics show that the suicide rate for labourers is 3 times higher than the male suicide rate for the whole of the UK. And the cost of mental illness to the industry, to the UK economy, not the industry, is £94 billion per year in 2015 and rising. So it represents over 4% of GDP. And in Ireland, that's 3.1%. And that's figures from the Chief Medical Office report. So the impact on individuals. But physical signs of stress. Get tired, indigestion, headaches, changing your appetite, all of these things. Then you get your psychological signs of stress. Anxiety, tearfulness, slow moods, loss of motivation. Behavioural signs of stress, increased reliance on those, things that are bad for you, smoking, drinking, withdrawal, aggression, lateness, recklessness. Recklessness is a serious issue. It's a safety issue. People are making, decisions on site. Being reckless is not a good idea. People may look to self-medicate. Construction workers, 15% have abused drugs and alcohol or prescription medicines. Some of these are the reasons. Men, a tough guy culture is particularly damaging to the well-being of the workforce. Men might feel sort of embarrassed or ashamed for feeling anxiety or depression. They certainly don't feel comfortable about talking about it. And being unable to talk will prevent you from seeking professional guidance or even reaching out to someone about how they feel. It stops poor mental health being recognised in society as a real and common issue. Everyone suffers from low mood and anxiety from time to time. There is no shame. There are many triggers. So as employers, there are measures we can take. We can design and manage the work and the workplace. It was interesting to see Joanna's presentation on the better buildings. The culture of the industry's contributed. There's plenty employers can do to play their part, to design and manage the workplace to minimise harm. Employee well-being needs to be taken seriously on an ongoing basis. You can embed mental health and stress and emotional well-being into your health and safety policies. It's vital that employees know their health and safety, both mental and physical, is a top priority, and communicating this, making sure policies are followed, shows the employee that the employer values them and their safety, and that in itself can contribute to a sense of well-being. Improve the physical environment for staff. Again, looking at the Edge, the pictures of the Edge in the Netherlands. Good lighting, it prevents mental health problems such as fatigue, eye strain, headaches, all of which increase stress levels. Rest areas, so designing a canteen or rest areas, use calming colour schemes. Consider the acoustics, protect the rest area from the site noise, for health and safety reasons and mental health reasons. A pleasant communal area where socialising and relaxation is encouraged during downtimes leads to a happy workforce, and they're a productive workforce. Provide stress management training, and I forgot to put up here, counselling as well. Offer counselling to your staff. Allow them to access that, make it easier, because it's not easy. Stress management training benefits both the individual and teams, and informed managers they're much more likely to be able to spot the signs of someone who's struggling. And support and encourage your staff to look after themselves and self-manage. Embed it into your culture, organisational culture. The measures we could take as managers. First and foremost, look after number one. If you're looking after yourself, you can look after others. Lead by example. Again, embed well-being into the work culture and role model your desired mindsets and behaviour. Don't tolerate bullying and other unacceptable behaviour. Recognise that time pressures, testosterone-fuelled attitudes, they can lead to hot-headed situations. It's recognised as contributing to poor decision-making and safety lapses. So discourage risky behaviour. Get the workforce talking. Provide advice, coaching, and the tools to empower people to take responsibility for their own well-being. And engage with your people. Ask questions. Listen to them. We're nearly there. Number 8. There we are. Measures we can take as individuals. We look after ourselves. I've said that before. If we look after ourselves, we're better equipped to look after other people. Take time to check in. How do you feel mentally, physically? Look after your well-being. Eat well, exercise. Do you drink enough water? Do you eat a balanced diet? How are you sleeping? Do you feel rested? How is your thinking today? How do you feel? Are you having negative or harmful thoughts? Get moving. Physical and mental health are connected. Avoid overdoing it. And by that, I mean sort of too much coffee, caffeine, alcohol, sugar. It's pretty bad for you as well. Too many quick fixes that actually increase stress in the long term. Make time for some fun. Do things you enjoy. Positive emotions build a barrier against stress. Avoid overworking. Set yourself realistic deadlines. Take a lunch break. Go home on time. We all need to take time to unwind. No more out-of-hour emails. It puts pressure on others too. Take up a new skill. Do something that makes you feel good about yourself. Learn the guitar, a language. I actually took up upholstery. Ta-da! I made a chair. I was so chuffed with it. Lovely. And very therapeutic too. And remember to take time to talk. Talk to your colleagues about mental health. Difficult subject, but reach out. Reach out for help if you need it, if you need support. Ask for it. Ask your colleagues how they're feeling. Start a conversation. You may save a life. There's a few places where you can find out more information, get some support, health and safety, etc. Reams of stuff on how to manage mental health in the workplace. Every Mind Matters. Mind. There's dozens and dozens of charities and organisations now. There's the Lighthouse Club and Construction Industry Helpline, specifically for people working in the construction sector. We've got Mental Health Ireland, who are celebrating their 50th year this year. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.